Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Help! I'm trapped in a city of all women. Part 8. There was a celebration and a coup today. I didn't want to bother going to the coronation. I was far too busy helping at the house of Hestia. Lana had her hands full. There were several Hesties who were panicked by the change in the power structure. Despite the coronation being later that day, Raga had already issued an order. All deployed soldiers were to return. Lana and I had taken a breather between informing Hesties of when their arties were coming home. I have never seen a full recall before, Lana sighed. I took time to ask a question that had been bouncing around in my mind for the past week. Lana, I need to know something. The Queen. Empress, Lana corrected, frowning. She prefers Empress. And I'm not one to debate, she groaned. I've never seen Cassara struggle against anyone. Outside of Zephyrina, that is. About Zephyrina, I continued. The Empress. Doesn't she look an awful lot like her? Lana turned away. Is this Empress Zephyrina's real mother? I asked. Lana was silent. Please tell me. Lana whispered into my ear to ensure that no one else overheard her. Zephyrina is the Queen of Prophecy. What is the Queen of Prophecy? I whispered back. Lana dragged me down the hall and into an empty dormitory room. You are terrible at being quiet, she scolded. Sorry, I asked again. So what is this Queen of Prophecy? Lana explained. There was this prophecy long ago that Parenthesil would rise to greatness when a queen was born who had no father. How does someone have no father? I asked. Lana sighed. I don't know. She leaned against the wall. But Zephyrina has no father. What do you mean? I mean her birth involves no man, Lana continued. I can't explain how, okay? Every time Rachel told me how it happened, it made me dizzy. This Ragna woman is some kind of genius. Why do you say that? Because she found some kind of method, or invented something, that allowed her to have a child with Rachel, she sighed. And that's Zephyrina. Wait, so Ragna is Zephyrina's mother, Lana explained. It clicked in my head then. Why, all those years ago, Ava and Zephyrina called Rachel Mama. But this means that Rachel knew her before, I said, confused. Lana nodded. My mother told me about how Rachel vanished for years. They lost her when she was only 10 years old. And after that, Queen Takisha, rest her soul, demanded such search parties and everything. But Queen Takisha never found her. It wasn't until almost 70 years later that Rachel returned. Rachel can't be 80 years old, I said. She may be in her 40s at most. Lana nodded again. That's the thing. We don't know where she went. We expect she lived longer because of her wings. They're blessed by the gods. And was Queen Katisha alive? She was, Lana sighed. I'd only just enrolled in the House of Hestia as a recruit. Rachel returned with Ava as an infant, and she was carrying another child, but she couldn't have been more than a week along. She didn't tell anyone where she went, and was shocked to see how old her mother was. What happened to Queen Katisha? I asked. She died, but rumor has it Rachel might have killed her. Lana frowned. Though that is a nasty rumor. Queen Katisha was old. It was remarkable she held on for as long as she did. They say she hung on to see her daughter again before she died. and having seen her, she let go. So how do you know Zephyrina is Ragna's then? I asked. I was a recruit, but my status as a daughter of a general was, well, it gave me the honor of helping as a midwife for Zephyrina's birth, Lana explained. That must have been fun, I said, rolling my eyes. Zephyrina didn't cry when she was born. She was born with her eyes wide open. When I handed her to Rachel, she said, "She has her mother's eyes." I sat there for a moment, trying to wrap my head around this. Ragna will want to get a hold of Zephyrina then, I said. I looked to Rachel. Does she even know she has a daughter? Lana shrugged. I'm not sure. I moved to the door. We need to get back at it, I said. Another whisper spoke to me. Go to the coronation. I froze. Actually, I turned to Lana. I want to go to the coronation, if that's all right. Lana placed her hand on the door. Did Demetria talk to you? I nodded. To Hilavy, I frowned. Do you think she has a chance? Lana sighed. I don't know. I hope so. I'd much rather call Demetria queen than Ragna or Rachel. Well, I'll be rooting for Demetria, I said as I walked out. I'll be watching the broadcast. I'm sure everyone else will, she sighed. Root for her discreetly. To say that the coronation was a busy event would be an understatement. I got into a line where one of the royal guards was standing, ensuring everyone had an invitation. As I had never received an invitation, I wasn't sure how I would fare. But Eris told me to come here. Either that or I was losing my mind. After a time, I arrived at the royal guard. She looked defeated and demoralized. Name, she said half-heartedly. Madison Eris Hill, I said. So many Discordians, she droned. I don't see you on here. I'm Commander Regis's Hesty. Maybe I'm under her? She checked again. As she did, I had to ask, Are you okay? None of us are okay, she sighed. I see you here, under Maddie. That's me. I waved weakly. She nodded, stepping aside. The event will start shortly. I frowned as I walked past her. Many were unhappy with Ragna being the new queen, though I wondered why that was, as it was far too soon for her to enact real change. I got my answer once I walked inside. They had rearranged the throne room. Now there sat 2 thrones. A larger one sat next to Rachel's old throne. There were still seats on either side for the princesses. I wonder where they were. The throne was silver and black. The velvet was new, and it had the Omega symbol on it, with 3 arrows piercing through it, all facing down. I realized that it was like the symbol of Penthesil, which was supposed to be the symbol of Artemis. This had the same Omega symbol as Ragna's cloak. Massive banners hung from the ceiling. They were black or white. All had the new symbol on it, either in silver or gold. Cooks were preparing food somewhere, and I saw royal guards standing diligently by the thrones. 4 thrones, all 4 filled with queens of some sort. A light voice whispered in my ear. I jumped, turning around to spot Eurybia. Oh, Eurybia, you scared me. Eurybia chuckled. Good. May discord surround you. May discord surround you, I repeated. It's lovely, is it not? She said, grinning. I nodded. It's something. I looked to the guards and soldiers. None appeared happy. The new empress isn't popular. Eurybia shook her head. No. Our numbers tripled yesterday. Eris be praised, I said, looking around. Wait, tripled? Eurybia nodded. In times of strife, people turn to those who offer solutions. We offer an appetizing solution. So why are you here? I asked. Eurybia sighed. I tried to convince our new empress to allow me to coronate her. Could you imagine the look on the Order of Artemis's faces? I nodded. I'm sure they wouldn't be pleased. Rumor has it Empress Ragna will receive no coronation from any of the orders. She grins, which I think is even better. It will throw them into a frenzy if the Empress chooses no allegiance. Really? I asked. They matter that much? Eurybia nodded. The Order of Artemis were the last ones to coronate both Takesha and Rachel, unseating the Order of Athena, which fell from grace. The Order of Artemis has been in power ever since. I saw Hilly walk out before the throne. Please take your seats, honored guests. The coronation will begin. She spotted me, walking towards me. Maddie, what are you doing here? I've never seen a coronation before, I bluffed. Hilly frowned. Just try to keep your head down. I nodded. Eurybia threw her arm over my shoulder. Why don't you join us at the Discordian table, Madison? Sure, I said as Hilly walked off. I sat down with Eurybia and a few prominent members of our order. The now Colonel Gero among them. The table was the closest one to the throne, which seemed odd to me. Most try to keep us at arm's length away. Formal music played as Rachel took her seat at the smaller throne. Unlike her normal robes and armor, she's wearing a formal red velvet dress, which is rather, form-fitting. To my complete shock and others, a Catholic nun of Middle Eastern descent stood up at the front of the room before the crown on a small pedestal. The development pleased Eurybia. She leaned forward, whispering to me, She chose the Christian order? Oh, they will go nuts. Eris be praised. The crown was platinum, with black and blue jewels set in the peak, and it was much smaller, less grandiose than Rachel's. The metal work was intricate, but otherwise, it was not much to speak of. Demetra walked over to the nun. The Empress has chosen the Christian faith as the order to provide over this coronation. Sister Catherine will act in Princess Tasha's stead as a representative, Demetra announced before she took her seat among Theodora, Helena, and a few government figures. Ragna walked from the entrance to the crown as the music swelled. She knelt before the nun, and the nun began to speak. O God, who provides for thy people by thy power, and rules over them in love, grant unto this thy servant, Sister Catherine hesitated, Ragna, our empress, the spirit of wisdom and government, that being devoted unto thee with all her heart, she may so wisely govern this queendom, that in her time thy church and people may continue to stay in safety and prosperity, and that, persevering in good works unto the end, she may, through thy mercy, come to thine everlasting queendom. She placed the crown on Ragna's head, as if she was expecting something to explode from the crown. Nothing happened. Ragna grinned, standing, advancing towards the throne. Rachel stood, clapping, and others began to clap with her. It was a forced celebration as Ragna sat on the largest throne. I had a feeling at least half of the room might have known about Demetra's plan. As the food came out from waiters, more music played. Sister Catherine picked up the pedestal with the woman who shocked Hilly when they first arrived. I glared daggers at her, but I don't think she saw me doing so. The real nun's name is Fatima. The other woman is Syria, Colonel Geru clarified. What? I asked, turning to The woman you were glaring at so? That's Syria, Empress Ragna's mage. One of 3 from what I understand. Good to know, I said as I looked to the thrones, wondering where Demetra would make her move. Rachel had laid across Ragna's lap, tossing grapes into Ragna's mouth. Ragna smiled. This is a rowdy bunch, Ragna said, lifting a mug of what I assumed was beer. A few of the soldiers cheered as Ragna was lifting the mug to them. Wait till you're queen for a few years, Rachel said, smiling. Ragna grinned to Rachel. Empress, remember? Besides, I like them. You would, Rachel chuckled. Demetra walked up to the base of the throne. She had armor over her yellow robes. Demetra walked up to the base of the throne. She had armor on over yellow robes, a shield on her back and a sword at her hip. The shield had the symbol of stewardship on it, a blue eye over a golden belt. She had a wine glass in her hand. I grew nervous watching her approach, unsure about what would happen. Rachel's wide smile dropped as she saw Demetria. Demetria looked up to the throne with hate in her eyes and looked around at those who were celebrating, shouting over the crowd. Enough of the racket, you lot! Your steward speaks! The crowd fell silent. Ragna leaned over Rachel. Who is this? Empress Ragna Misho, allow me to introduce myself. I am Steward Demetra Hera Regis, and I would like to offer a toast to our new empress. Ragna nodded to Demetria, lifting her mug. To our new empress, Demetra began, lifting a wine glass. A great warrior? She said, as if asking a question, whom we have never met nor seen in battle, who took the throne not by force, but... Demetria paused. Seduction? She accused. There was murmuring around the court. Rachel grinned wide, hopping off Ragna's lap. Please do what I think you will do, you bitch. Ragna's face faded, turning back to Rachel. Do what? Demetra kept silent, her glass raised. I have heard of my grandmother who ruled by choice, and I have seen Rachel and her mother rule by blood right. But I have never seen one ruled by sleeping her way to the throne. The crowd erupted in laughter and gasps. Eurybia was ecstatic. Oh, how disastrous. Silence, Ragna shouted, standing, her voice carrying with an almost unnatural weight of authority. Everyone fell deathly silent. I will attribute most of your words to too much wine, Stuart, Ragna said, glaring down at her from the throne. But Empress, Demetra said, pouring her glass on the floor. I drank no wine this evening. She tossed the glass to the foot of the throne. It shattered beneath Ragna's feet. Ragna placed her mug down on the arm of the throne. It's time to test your mettle, Empress Ragna. She drew her sword, pointing the tip at her. I hereby formally challenge you for the throne of Penthesil. There's now cheering and shouting from everyone as the royal guard cleared the floor before the throne of tables and people. Our table is spared. Rachel was downright giddy. Yes, she screamed. I've been waiting for this day for so long, Demetria. Oh, I was hoping you'd challenge me someday. But this is just as good. She reached to Ragna's belt and drew a sword from it. I get to watch you die. She went to shove the handle of the sword into Ragna's hand. Ragna took the sword from Rachel and fixed Demetria with a serious gaze. Rachel, sit. Rachel did so, still smiling. Demetria glared. You have our queen under some spell. That's the only reason I can think of why she's dressed as a Hestie beside you, behaving like a harlot. Rachel herself said she would rather die before giving up the throne. You play a dangerous game, Demetria, steward of Penthesil, Ragna warned. I do not wish to kill anyone today, so go, take your seat. You and I can discuss politics behind closed doors. So, does that mean you are refusing my challenge? Demetria said with a broad smile. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Rachel whispered into Ragna's ear. Ragna bellowed, What do you mean if I refuse her challenge, I give up the throne? Ragna glared at Demetria. What mad woman instituted such a law? Demetria cocked a knowing grin. Empress Ragna. The one who made that law sits to your right. Ragna turned to Rachel. You've killed your own people to keep your power? Rachel held up her hand. 4 times. Grinning, Ragna whispered something to Rachel, and Rachel's face fell. Rachel whispered something back. Ragna growled. After I fix this debacle. Rachel sunk, defeated, into the throne next to Ragna. Everyone seemed confused, even Demetria. I will not forfeit, Ragna decreed. Then you accept my challenge, Demetria said, smiling. Ragna frowned. I will, Steward Demetria, but I implore you to withdraw. Ragna appeared saddened. I do not wish to kill you. It's clear to me you love your country and your people. We can speak of both behind closed doors and reach an understanding. I am a woman of honor, and my word. I will not withdraw, she said, removing her shield. How do we go about this? Ragna asked. Do we begin now? She pointed her sword at Demetria. Demetria threw her sword to the floor. No weapons and no armor, she said as she removed her breastplate, revealing only a white tank top. Just you against just me, she smirked. I saw Theodora standing off to the side, holding Helena close to her. Despite 5 years passing, Helena was still a child mentally. Ragna looked to her armor, then turned to Rachel. Rachel, help me remove my armor. Rachel scoffed. Why not have Syria or Alexis? I asked neither of them. Now did I, Rachel? Ragna bellowed, narrowing her eyes. Your law has me doing this. You will help me deal with it. In a sight I never imagined seeing, Rachel recoiled at Ragna shouting, and then began to remove her armor. The entire room was in shock. The Mad Queen, undefeated in battle, was removing Ragna's armor like a young squire. As each piece of armor came off her, however, Theodora's eyes grew wide. The armor was not as thick as we had thought. It was thin, light, and merely covered massive muscles bulging over every inch of Ragna's body. Ragna was a true monster, in height and bulk, and it shocked even me. Eurybia let out a wolf whistle. She leaned over me. Hot, she grinned. You're enjoying yourself too much, I whispered. When Rachel finished, Ragna stood ready in what I could best describe as a black singlet, looking no smaller than she did with the armor. She stretched her arms and cracked her knuckles, flexing her muscles as she did. I offer you one more chance to withdraw, Demetria. Demetria's confidence has dropped as she saw Ragna's physique revealed. Theodora shouts, Mother, withdraw, please. Rachel smiled at this. Demetria turned to Theodora. My daughter, we do not back down. She turned to Ragna. Even in the face of annihilation, that is the way of the soldier. Ragna's fists clenched and she closed her eyes. her wings wilting. Pride comes before the fall, Demetria. She glared at her, her violet eyes glowing. That's a lesson I've learned all too well. Withdraw, for their sakes. Ragna motioned to Theodora and Helena. I have challenged you, and I will stand and fight for my people, Demetria shouts. Theodora walked forward, gathering her mother's weapons and armor, and tossing them to the side. Then, as heir to the stewardship, I, Theodora Hera Regis, declare this challenge. She hesitated. Officiated. You may begin. Demetria took a deep breath and dashed towards Ragna, throwing a mighty left hook at Ragna's face. Ragna dodged it with little effort, dodging the next few punches with ease. It seemed the armor wasn't her strength. It only slowed her down. Without it, Ragna moved much faster than she did when Cassara fought her. Demetria continued her assault, hurling a kick that was aimed at Ragna's shoulder, but struck only air. She hurled an elbow which missed Ragna's nose by an inch. Demetria's attack continued to miss, though they moved closer and closer to making contact. Damn you, Demetria shouted. Stop running from me and fight! Ragna growled, throwing her fist forward and landing a blow deep into Demetria's stomach. Demetria flew backwards a good 10 feet. Helena cried out, burying her face into Theodora's side. Theodora clasped her sister against her. Ragna marched towards the prone Demetria as she caught her breath. It takes far more energy to swing and miss than to strike, she said, approaching her. You are out of your depth, Stuart. Yield! Demetria got to her hands and knees. Never, she wheezed as she stood up and hurled a right hook at Ragna. Ragna caught it in her hand and began to squeeze Demetria's fist. We heard the cracking of bone as Demetria roared in pain. Still, she threw a punch with her free hand, striking Ragna's chin. Ragna's head barely moved as it struck her. She looked down on Demetria with what can only be described as compassion. Yield! Demetria screamed through the pain. Ah, this is a fight to the death! I prepared to die when I challenged you. Ragna struck Demetria hard in the side with her free hand. I heard more snapping of bones. Yield, Ragna demanded. Demetria coughed and then spat blood onto Ragna's chest. Never! Demetria began to hurl punches against Ragna's stomach. Ragna didn't seem to notice the blows as she growled, hurling Demetria across the room. Demetria spun in the air, a look of shock on her face as she soared across the room and into a stone pillar. I heard a crack as she crumpled to the floor, sputtering, blood staining the column. Ragna turned to Theodora and Helena, marching towards Demetria as she did. She grabbed Demetria by her arm and dragged her towards them. Theodora tried to take a step back, but Helena was too frightened to budge. Ragna grabbed Demetria by the back of the neck. Demetria, breathing, growing, labored. Look at your daughters. Demetria growled, wheezing. Leave them out of this. She coughed, dripping blood from her mouth and nose. This is between us. Ragna knelt, holding Demetria's hand over her knee. Is this what you want? For me to murder you before your own children? Demetria struggled, her one free hand, her only uninjured one, reaching to Ragna, trying to free herself. Even battered and barely able to move, she was still trying to fight. Look at them, damn it! Ragna shouted. Look at them and tell me why you will die, needlessly, before your children. Ragna looked to Theodora. If you will not yield to save your life, yield for them to be spared the grief of losing their mother. I have a duty. I have, Demetra gasped. Honor. Ragna closed her eyes. When you're dead, Demetria, can I ask your corpse what honor is worth? She turned to her. And it will tell me the answer. Ragna lifted Demetria up over her knee. Yield, or I kill you now. Demetria looked to Theodora. I must keep them safe. Ragna closed her eyes. Don't make me do this, sister. Demetria closed her eyes, then glanced at Ragna. Sister? Are we all not sisters here? Ragna said. Demetria coughed, wheezed, then whispered, I yield. Ragna cradled her, letting her down gently on the ground. Alexis, get over here now. Heal her. Alexis bound over, looking like a child next to Demetria and Ragna. Must I? I hate healing. That's Zithero's job. Ragna grasped Alexis by the neck, lifting her into the air. You will heal her. Do you understand me, witch? Alexis whined. Fine, fine. And with that, Ragna let her go. She knelt next to Demetria and began to chant, the water surrounding her wounds. Ragna looked to Theodora. You're ruling. Theodora hugged Ragna. Thank you. Thank you for showing mercy. She hesitated. My empress. Helena did the same, and the room erupted into cheering. Ragna hefted Helena onto her shoulder. I said sister because I fought long and hard for many years, and I thought I was the only one of my kind. Everywhere I looked, men stood tall and lorded over women, but they did not know how to rule. Men subjugated people for their own benefit. They sit and determine the fate of the world, she shouted. Ragna turned to Rachel. I knew I had fallen in love with Rachel. It was not just Rachel I longed for. Through her, I fell in love with Penthesil. Of the stories she told of this land of sisterhood, both in battle, she turned to a group of soldiers who cheered, and at home, she looked to a group of Hestes, who also cheered. People were on their feet, and as they got up, my heart hammered in my chest. The way she spoke, it reached a deep part of me. It compelled me to listen. I have come here for Rachel, that is true. But I found you all, and I do not ask you to serve me. I ask, she shouted, to serve you. More cheering. Was I cheering? I was. I couldn't stop. Something was wrong. I have come to serve you, to elevate all of Penthesil, because this land is too small for such great women. My stomach sank. The speech. I felt like I was at a rally. I have come to make Penthesil something greater than a mere city-state, she shouted. Penthesil will be an empire. Our empire, she shouts, thrusting a fist into the air. Everyone shouts now, and the cheers are deafening. And I can't stop my voice from joining the crowd. But something is wrong. Something is far too familiar. Too long the world of man has not known of you. Too long men have ruled and oppressed. Well, I say we reintroduce ourselves. Penthesil should strike back. Penthesil will liberate our sisters in our neighboring countries. Cheers. And the sisters in all of South America. Even more cheering. The sisters of this entire continent, Ragna proclaimed. Eurybia shouted, Will you lead us to war? Ragna turned to face her. I will be in the vanguard with you. I will fight by your side, she screamed. For all our sisters. For Penthesil. Eurybia shouts now. The prophecy fulfilled. Empress Ragna has come to us to replace the fallen Athena. All hail Empress Ragna, the new goddess of war. Hail, 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 the crowd shouted. I grew dizzy. The words, everything, the crowd. I thought I recognized it from somewhere before. A new power was rising up before my eyes. I was watching the rise of a new, charismatic dictator. Men shall fall and women shall rise, she shouted. Ragna's violet eyes focused on me, and in the back of my mind, the sound of marching feet. Thousands of them, resonating. I heard cheering, and the fists thrusting into the air with Ragna's in a powerful gesture. The shouting grew deafening, and even as I tried to cover my ears, the voice in my head shouting, as if it were a throng of voices. Hail, hail, hail. So quoth this raven, my darlings. We have one more part to go, and it will be interesting. Thank you all so much for joining me. It means so much. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Ermin, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, and Charlotte Emerson. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.